you are or what gender you are. Video games have been a part of the lives of many. While it's argued that the earliest examples of it dates all the way back to 1947, it's generally accepted that they arose during the late 1960s. Since then, with the rapidly changing technology, this industry has been able to offer more to its audiences. Since this industry is first and foremost a business, it is important for developers within them to abide by the changes in technology in order to satisfy the needs of their target audiences. However, with the ability to put more realism into video games such as Grand Theft Auto, it can cause them to become more unsuitable for certain demographics such as children. And unlike the film industry, regulating video games so that the more vulnerable audiences do not come in contact with them is a lot harder to do.
The market for digital games and apps is exploding across devices and across the globe. With just one click, developers can publish their games and apps virtually anywhere. But each region has its own standards, or in some cases even laws, about what type of content is right for which ages, which can make getting a game or app rated very complicated and time-consuming.
With the deep history that Britain has with moral panics linked to youth culture, this brings up the question of just who exactly should be regulating this industry. In order to answer this question, we must first look at what regulations are in place. Currently, within the United Kingdom, a vast majority of regulations in terms of video games have been provided by PEGI. The Pan-European Game Informant, or PEGI for short, has been rating video games in accordance to the content within them in more than 20 European countries since the spring of 2003. This rating system takes into consideration how the themes of violence, nudity, and criminal activity, if any, are presented within the game context alongside the use of language, audio, and scenes to make classifications.
Absolutely. We have a age-related sales training for every single member of staff, and they have to be kept up to date at all times. That's for the BBCFC as well as PEGI rating systems.
Outside of regulations provided by PEGI, games can also be regulated by the British Board of Film Classifications, or BBFC. Normally, games are exempt from this classification unless they depict human sexual activity, genitalia, organs, or gross acts of violence.
As a player, you can solicit a prostitute, kill her, and if that's not enough, you have the option to run her over.
The sense of violence against women being used as almost background decoration, right?
In which case, the publishers must submit the game to be classified. Otherwise, retailers who supply these games could be subjected to a fine, as stated in the Video Recordings Act of 1984. Furthermore, with the introduction of the Digital Economy Act 2010, the responsibility of classifying games in the United Kingdom became the responsibility of the Video Standards Council. This is still a lot more than other countries have in comparison. For example, in the United States, there are no laws against the sales of violent video games to children.
Often really it depends on the parent. I mean, we do get a lot of parents who game themselves, so obviously they are a lot more clued up as to what's going on, but we do get a lot of customers coming in, especially around Christmas time, parents, grandparents as well.
The ESRB applies and enforces ratings and online privacy within the gaming industry. These ratings are supposed to provide information about the game's content so that the buyer can make informed decisions on their purchase. In order to gain a better look on what parents as well as the general public do know, we took to the streets with the PEGI systems to see how many actually recognize it and were met with these results. Out of all the people that we interviewed, only 1/3 of the people on the streets actually knew what each of the PEGI rating system symbols meant, while the remaining 2/3 did not know exactly what each of the ratings meant. However, they did recognize them, a fact that wasn't very surprising, taking into consideration that statistics state that the average ages for video gamers are between the age of 18 and 35. Bandura's Bobo doll experiment is a prime example of just how impressionable young children can be to the media. However, the validity of this experiment was questioned by many, such as Cumberbatch. Even violent video games, however, are not completely bad for kids, as cognitive researcher Daphne Bavelier argues.
Hard. Why is it hard? Because I introduced a conflict. What we can show is that when you do this kind of task with people that play a lot of action games, they actually resolve the conflict faster. Playing those action games doesn't lead to attentional problems.
Furthermore, parents aren't as oblivious to these regulations either, given that some of them are video gamers themselves. So, to go back to the question of who should be regulating video games, it has come to my attention over the course of this study that it should not be done just by the industry, the government, or even just parents. This industry should be regulated by these bodies in conjunction, as this is an effort that involves all of them, because the government and the industry can't regulate what exactly your kids are playing, so the parents themselves have to also be aware.